You can also talk just like you're doing now, the whole thing. Nothing will change for you except the accessibility. And Cody, how would they get to this? It would be a link.
We'll put it on the website.
It'll be on the Empowering Pastors website that you would just go to and click a button, and it would take you right to the meeting, or go right to our YouTube page. We have one for Empowering Pastors, and boom, you'd be able to click that. It'd be right on there too. So this is new. My wife does this for the Empowering Pastors' wives. I'd really encourage all the pastors' wives that will be getting on to make sure that you sign up for my wife's class on Thursdays. I believe it starts, I want to say at 11:30. Do you remember what time? 11:15. Hi, Pastor Treadway. And wow, it's really, really, really good for the ladies, and gives the pastors' wives a steadfastness. Hello, woman of God. I was listening to my record this morning. Called the Hinnans. I don't know if you ever heard of the Hinnans. Probably 1976, 1978. Yeah, it's really old. Old gospel. Pastor Treadway, how beautiful is it in Kentucky today? I'm hungry too. What'd you guys bring? Can I have a French fry? Maybe two? I haven't had French fries forever. Oh, they're Wendy's? You gave me the whole packet? Really? Oh my goodness. I haven't had a French fry forever. It's so good. Wow. Please take these away from me.
Hey, can I have them?
Yeah. I'll eat them all. I will too. I eat every one of them. Wow, they're good. Oh,
No.
you sure you don't want one? Oh my goodness, it's so good.
I know they are. I just ate before I came.
I can't tell you honestly the last time I had a French fry.
Huh.
Wow, so good. All right, if you'll all make sure that we're kind of quiet today. I think that a lot of people are out on vacation. But if you will go to your email, you should have the notes. And Pastor Obi, for everyone in here, is getting notes for you all too. We're going to be starting in about 4 minutes. 4 minutes, everybody. I feel weird because I got to look both ways. I got two computers.
I see that.
It's kind of confusing.
So you're live right now in that view.
Oh,
You can go right on
I'm
YouTube.
scary. And you could go right on YouTube. What's the link?
They just type in. Missing the link.
You could go right on YouTube. What's the link?
They just type in. I'm texting you the link right now.
Okay.
The communication isn't set up on that one yet, but it's there.
Okay.
Should be.
If you'd like notes, they're here.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 years.
I can't get it to go over. So
Command C, Command V.
I did that.
Sometimes the copy doesn't work.
Yeah, I was national for out of 7 years.
And we can edit this, right?
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the YouTube, link if you want to jump to that. There are notes up here if anybody wants notes.
Not that it fits me because it's built for.
Are we starting in 1 minute?
You can make it private with the passwords, but if you send your mail, you can make it unlisted and private. It's just-
Well, you can tell we're missing some of the key staff members, the ones who make the food. Now, I don't know, maybe I have the plague, but I did. Who did not get one? I sent it to him.
In person only.
Yes, there are issues,
There are issues, what do you mean?
the plague.
Oh. I'm gonna send another one to Brother Josh. Hi, Jody, how are you? Josh Fuchsman, select and send. Tell him it was sent again. He should check his junk mail. Sent successfully. Okay, praise the Lord. Let's get started. Hi, Jody. It's a great day. God is so good. We're going to be studying something that was just on my heart this morning. As I like to really ask the Holy Spirit what He wants to give you, because I believe there are certain things that apply sometimes more towards business, sometimes more towards ministry. Sometimes of course, the bridge is there because leadership is so powerful. And what I want to talk about today is called leadership tenacity. When to change and when to stay the course. As we all know, if you've made if you have been in leadership for any period of time, you're going to make decisions that are unpopular. Has anybody ever had to make an unpopular decision before? Now, this is part of just who we are. The realistic truth is that if we're going to be a great leader, we've got to be willing to make decisions that will cause people to dislike us, cause people to disagree with us, cause people to be angry with us, cause people to walk away from us. This is part of leadership. It's not, you're never going to escape this. Well, that's not true. You can escape this by being a person that never makes decisions. The problem is that you're most likely never going to move forward. Every decision means change. One of the things that people despise the most in life is change. Well, why? Well, because we like to have, if you've ever been in a boat before, let's just say a canoe, you don't want somebody standing up in the canoe because it just starts to rock back and forth. And that's what happens many times when change comes into our lives, because change means that the consistency and constancy that we were used to now has diversity to it. Not only that, some people, they don't want any part of change unless they're able to be part of the decision-making process. And another process or situation dealing with change is that people get angry with change because, let's be honest, people wouldn't be angry with change if it didn't touch them personally. We could care less if today a change is made in another location at another company that had no impact on our lives. But people, every individual on this planet has a self-preservation mode. And that is, we want to know that whenever a decision is made, that it's going to be to our benefit. That's big. So everybody wants every decision to be part of their benefit. If it's not part of what it's going to benefit their lives, then they are asking the questions no matter what does this mean to me? With this, puts every leader in a very precarious situation, because that means you've got to make decisions that are not going to make everybody happy. And ding, 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 let's all come to a real quick conclusion, and that is, you will never make everybody happy. Ever. You can make the best decision and see the greatest results, and somebody is still mad. You are never going to make everybody happy. The leaders that always want to make people happy are the leaders that really are never going to make change or make their company move forward. But this is a hard thing. How many of you like to be liked? Everybody likes to be liked. Everybody wants people to like them. But in ministry, now it's just that he's more mature. In ministry, let's be honest, if you don't like people, then you shouldn't be in ministry. Now, you can be in a company and not like people. You just like money. But if you're going to be in ministry, you got to like people. And it's human nature. Everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants people to accept them. Everybody wants people to like their decisions. Everybody likes it when somebody is on their side. Well, we know this is true because every time somebody makes a decision, one of the very first things that they do is go find someone to agree with them. Even if the decision is absolutely crazy, they still, listen, you will always find someone to agree with you. And by human nature, we go try to find people who will agree with us. Why? Because we want the decisions that we make to be validated in our own head, and we want the acceptance of the people. But if you're going to be a leader, guess what? This is not always your option. The fact is that you're going to have many decisions that you are going to have to make that are not going to make you popular, that are not going to allow people to like you, because it is going to adversely affect their world. Every time you make a decision, there are positives and negatives. Every time you make a decision, people are going to like it and people are going to dislike it. Why? Because it's going to either positively or negatively affect somebody within the organization. I remember it wasn't too many years ago. It was enough years ago, probably over a decade. Well, you know, well, time goes by quickly. Can I hear an amen from all the mature people online? Hallelujah. And I remember a decision that a local corporation made where they laid off 300 or let go 300 executives. Bam, gone. Let me tell you, it wasn't a popular decision, but it was used because it needed to do something for their company. Knowing that you must make hard decisions is part of being a good leader. You must be able to make good decisions and hard decisions. You know, there are times as parents that you have to look at your child and tell them that they need to do something. Well, they might not agree. Go clean your room. I don't want to clean my room. I don't care if you want to clean your room. And you sit there and have a discourse with your child. Well, the problem is what are you trying to do by telling your child to clean their room? You're trying to give them levels of responsibility. You're trying to teach them that the real world isn't that everything's going to be perfect in their life. That they are going to have to work. They are going to have to be consistent. They are going to have to do chores. They are going to have life working not just for them, but they're going to have to work for life. There are times we all have to make decisions that people are going to question, and they're going to challenge us. How many of you have ever made a decision that, let's just say in your family, you made a decision in your family and everyone questioned you about the decision in your family? How about your ministry? How about your salvation? Some of you you got saved and your family questioned whether you're out of your mind. Somebody said, Pastor Obi said, I didn't have a choice to get saved. All choices bring the dynamic of challenge in your life. And really, I really want you to get this, because if you are unwilling to make hard choices in leadership, you really can't be a good leader. You just can't. It's not going to be part of if you're not going to make this part of your DNA, then you are not honestly going to move forward with your capabilities in the design of God. Now, the thing also is that when people disagree, especially if you have a staff, there are times you have to listen to your staff. You know, we talk about how many of you have ever made a decision and maybe you're a little stubborn? Who's here stubborn? A little bit stubborn? Who here is really, really stubborn?
Put your hand up.
Really, let's be honest. Stubbornness is a big part of being a leader, though. You need that. Stubbornness in the right direction is very positive. Yes. But here we have to look at Sometimes we make decisions that are wrong. Anybody here ever made a bad decision before? But you were convinced it was the answer.
Yeah.
What do they call it? 2020 hindsight's 2020 vision.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about decisions and how when they're made or before they're made, you should be willing to listen. Now, I do want to show you two things. Number one, I want to show you that God has changed his mind before. That being stubborn, straight up stubborn, is not the greatest and godlike quality. God has changed his mind. We can look in the book of Genesis chapter 18, starting with verse 16, and it talks about how Abraham interceded for Sodom. The men rose up from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them and sent them on their way. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham will surely become the great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed by him. For I have known him in order that, and we'll get down, and he gets down, and he's getting ready to destroy Sodom. And Abraham makes this statement in verse 22. Then the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood before the Lord. And Abraham came near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Automatically, we see, who is God? It's a good time for you to answer. Who is God? He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. You know, I love people, the religious folk use the word sovereign. God is sovereign. And you know, I believe in the sovereignty of God, but it's taken out of context very often. But God in his sovereignty made a decision. I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And now we see one of his leaders standing up to him and said, oh, righteous God, will you destroy all of Sodom if you can find 50? What if there's 50? Will you destroy the righteous with the ungodly? And God made a decision. He said, nope, I won't. And it filters all the way down to verse 33, where God actually was changing his mind on destroying Sodom. If he could have found the few righteous within that city, God would not have destroyed the city. Here we are, so many of us are stubborn and not in a positive way. You see, because every decision affects the community that we have, there must be a willingness to listen to the leaders. Because a leader can change your mind. Now, the problem in this is that some of us take it as a hit to our pride if we have to change our mind. But the truth is, it's not a hit to your pride. It's called wisdom. For if God, the sovereign Lord, was willing to change his mind and would not have destroyed Sodom if the few righteous would have been found, then if God is willing to change his mind, I love the word that's also used. It's used in with Exodus, with Moses. He relented. Step back. Okay, I won't. I made the decision, but I'm going to step back now. You see, knowing that God is willing to change his mind puts us in the position as leaders, because there's no greater leader than God himself, that we too have to be willing to change our mind at times. And it's not weakness to change your mind. It's not that you are a weak leader when you change your mind. It actually shows a phenomenal amount of stability within your life when you are willing to listen to other leaders and shift and change your decision after you've made it conclusive. A lot of leaders consider it weakness if they listen or have their mind changed. It is not weakness. It is strength. Now, if you are cowardice, if you are one that will cower by the pressure, well, then it is not positive. If you are one that's changing or your decision because you want to make people happy, then that is cowardice and that is not positive. But if you are one that is willing to listen and allow the influence and impact of your leaders that you have given authority to in delegation to be able to impact a decision that you have in your life to where you're willing to shift it, that is not weakness. That is phenomenal strength, because that shows that within yourself, you have a strong self-esteem and you know who you are and that you don't have to feel intimidated by the people when your mind is changed. Now, I will tell you this. I have found an experience where I have changed my mind and people have seen it as weakness. They have looked at me and thought, I had one individual that actually thought because they could change my mind that I was a weak leader. In fact, that person told me I was a weak leader. Right down in this office. Looked me right in the eyeball and said, well, Pastor, I'm used to stronger leadership than yours. I wanted to reach out and touch him and bless him in the name of Jesus. Honestly, it was bothersome because I was so bothered because I had given them voice. But their perception of giving them voice meant that I was a weak leader. They wanted to be dictated to. The last church they were part of was a dictatorial environment where the pastor literally would pull them from the pulpit while they were preaching and tell them to sit on the front row and shut up. And they expected that that was actually strength. And that if I didn't lead in that type of dictatorial, hard-handed heaviness, that I was a weak leader. I want to tell you, a weak leader is one that never gives staff a voice. Weak leadership is when you're only willing to hear your own voice. True strength and true great leadership is when you're willing to hear other people's perspective on a decision that is going to ultimately impact their life. Now, the challenge with this, and let's go to this one, because I want to read this to you in Exodus chapter 32. I want you to see it. Exodus 32, starting with verse 30. The next day, Moses, now this is when they built the golden calf. The next day, Moses said to the people, you have committed a great sin, and now I'll go to the Lord. Perhaps I may make an atonement for your sin. So Moses went back to the Lord and said, oh, what a great sin these people have committed. It wasn't deniable what they did. They have made themselves gods of gold. But now please forgive their sin. But if not, then blot me out of your book you have written. Now, that's a great leader, by the way. Great leaders love their people enough to die for them. Remember, nobody remembers what you live for. They remember what you're willing to die for. Most people aren't willing to die for anything. They're willing to live for something that will give them a benefit, but unwilling to die for something that will cost them. So the greatest momentum in our lives isn't finding something we're willing to live for, but finding something we're willing to die for. What are you willing to die for? Well, this man named Moses was willing to die for the people. Now, let's be honest. At one point in time, Moses said, hey, these are your people. And God said, no, they're your people. You know, there was a battle here because these folks were tough. You imagine 2.5 million people. That's a strong pastoring. I think the largest in the world was Yonggi Cho at about 750,000 people. Can you imagine pastoring 2.5 million people? Can you imagine the diversity of their personalities and the strengths that they had and the opinions they carried? And I will remind you that your opinion doesn't always matter. So here we are. We have this day where they've committed this sin. And let's be honest, how easy would it have been for God to go, whole new people? But Moses so loved the people and yet so hated the people. Die for the people. And what happened? God relented his decision in the next verse. He changed his mind from destroying all of the people. God changes his mind. God listens. But he's God. He doesn't have to listen. But God does listen. God will change his mind. That's why it's called prayer. We can literally shift history by the power of prayer. How is that? Because we can literally move the hand of God. Well, let's look at Jesus. Let's look at Christ, one of the greatest leaders that ever walked on the land. Let's be honest. The woman who came with her daughter who was severely demon-possessed, she was a Canaanite. She was calling out for Jesus to heal her daughter, to deliver the demon. And Jesus simply said, I wasn't sent for you. I was sent for the children of Israel. But yet Christ relented his decision by faith. So as a leader, it is not weakness if we change our minds. It's not weakness if we make a decision, or before we make a decision, we actually communicate. That's not weakness. That's strength. Just because people disagree with you does not mean they're in rebellion. I love this statement. This is a hard one. You know, this is one I had to learn through. Anybody everyone ever heard that word before? Learn through. Sometimes you just simply learn and you get it. Sometimes you have to learn through it, which means you've made bad decisions that have pushed people out that didn't need to be pushed out. So I learned through this one. Just because people don't agree with you does not mean they're in rebellion with you. Does not mean they're telling you they don't like you. Does not mean they don't like your leadership or don't believe in the vision. Pastor Banfield, man, he's so funny. Pastor Banfield said to me, Pastor, just want you to know. You know he gets it. You know he gets it. Just want you to know. I don't always agree with you, but I believe in the vision. Well, I could have taken that to where, well, if you don't believe in everything I do, then what are you under my leadership for? But no, the fact is that if every leader agrees with every decision, then the leader is doing something wrong. Because every decision affects everybody in a diverse, I'm swinging not at you, I'm swinging at a fly, at a diverse manner. And the issue is that every decision is going to affect every leader, some positive, some negative. But if you change according to every person's likes and dislikes, you're going to be like that wave of the sea driven by the wind and tossed. You'll never make a decision. So just because people don't agree with you on your staff does not mean they're in rebellion with you. You know, I have staff members that don't like decisions that I make. I understand that. And the more we grow and the more the staff we get, the more I'm going to have to make decisions that they're not going to appreciate. I have to be okay with that. And the staff has to recognize they have to be okay with that too. And as the leader, I have to recognize just because they don't agree with me, they're not in rebellion against me. Now, if they take it to the next level, that's a different story. But just because there's disagreement does not mean there's rebellion. The relationship you have with your staff determines the voice that they're going to have. Now, there are, and Pastor Obi worked at Corning Incorporated, and I guarantee you Wendell's not sitting down with the people over the blue-collar workers at the glass factory asking them what their opinion is. He's making decisions with his leaders, who are their leaders, who are then their leaders. I don't know how many tiers they have, but you're not going to find the head leader running down to the guys down on the floor where they're making the glass packs and say, "What do you guys think?" But with the direct leaders that you have, there is a necessity to have levels of interface, levels of relationship, because if you're a dictator, then they are never going to give you their thoughts because they're always going to be shot down. But as an influencer, you want to hear the opinions of your staff. It's not that they're going to change your mind, but they could. I've many times, and you know, I know at times that I have staff members that think that, well, Pastor, you never listen to me, or I don't want to come share something with you. And honestly, my own mind, I can't wrap myself around that. But, you know, I've always had an open door policy with my staff. And I've had staff members come into my office and sit down. Yeah, healthy tension. I've had staff members come and sit down at my desk that honestly tell me they don't agree with the decision I made at all. And there are times I've had staff meetings where I am quite displeased. even with my executive pastor. We had one meeting in particular I wasn't happy with and he wasn't happy with. Both very strong leaders. There was a lot of tension in the room. That's life. If you never have tension, it means you're never making the bridge longer. You ever study a tension bridge? The more the tension, the more you can go. The longer the span. Yes.
I feel like if you have people on your team who are willing to disagree with you, not like fight you, but willing to voice it, it means that they care about the vision just as much as you do. So if they're just saying yes, 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 then they don't really care.
Well said. Let me say it again. She said, it's actually very healthy to have people on your staff that are willing to share their opinion, because that means they actually believe in the vision as much as you do.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
Thank you.
So we must be willing to listen. That means you got to be an influencer. And it's different between being an influencer and a dictator. And I know many pastors that are dictators. They really don't care what their people say. They really don't care their opinion. They don't care if it hurts them or helps them. They don't care about their families. They care nothing about anything except for, if it's a business, the mighty dollar, and if it's a church, how big can we grow it? I've seen pastors pull people up, publicly rebuke them, shatter them, destroy them. It's part of the dictatorial mindset. But God has called us to be influencers. Jesus was an influencer. Yes, he rebuked, but he guided. At times he heard the opinion of Peter and didn't like it. Remember the opinion of Peter? Jesus said, I'm going to go die. What did Peter say? You're not going to die. No one's going to kill you. What did Jesus say? Get thee behind me, Satan. I didn't find that was a real positive adventure. He shared his opinion. His opinion wasn't appreciated. And that's okay. He was rebuked. But he asked a few chapters before, he said, who do men say that I am? Well, Jesus was asking his disciples their opinion. And the opinion was from Peter, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus looked at him and said, man has not revealed this to you, Peter, but God has. And then a few chapters later is when he was rebuked, when he shared his opinion. So it's not just a positive thing for the leader to hear the opinions of the people, but also the people given the opinions must be willing to have their idea rejected. I remember sitting at a SWAT meeting one time. For those who don't know what SWAT is, I do a lot of examples during my sermons at church. And we have a team that does that. So we meet. And I remember we were at one of the meetings, and a new guy had just come on. And we're sitting there, and I gave the sermon we were going to do. He shared his thoughts, and everybody shot them down. Boom, 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 boom. I'm talking like decimated his entire plan and idea. They kept probably one sentence he said. I'm not even exaggerating. He looked at everybody and says, well, I guess I'm not needed here then, right? You must not only be willing to hear, but you must be, if you're going to give, be willing to not have it allowed. An opinion does not mean you move somebody. I know you've heard me say the name Lou Lamphere multiple times. But here is a man that 42 years executive with Prudential, extremely successful, what's the word I'm looking for? Successful man. Extremely successful man. He would look at me and say, you know, Pastor, I'm going to give you my idea. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I'm not bothered either way. He would share his idea with me. And you know what? Sometimes I would take it. And sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes because he was only from the business world, that would only work in the business world. I remember one time we were in a staff meeting and we had brought on a young man who was working in a corporation, a great guy. And he had gone through Bible college, and he was sitting in our office. And I was sharing with the staff a situation we were going through where we had somebody who was a volunteer that was causing rifts and problems. And he looked and he said, I'll tell you what we should do. Fire every one of them. Kick every one of them out of the ministry and let's start it all over. I said, what? And I said, dude, that might work when you're paying everybody, but it doesn't work when they're doing their time for free. And I said, you can't just go in and slaughter the people that are offering their time for free for Jesus. He said, well, I'm telling you right now, that's my opinion. If you don't like it, that's your problem. And if you don't need my opinion, then I don't need to be here. Yeah, it was. It was peace out, and he did leave. But honestly, everybody wants to give their opinion to the leader, but when the opinion's given to the leader and it's not accepted or used, then people get mad. You got to be willing not only to have your opinion heard, but to have your opinion rejected. God could have simply told Moses, skip you. I'm frying them all up. Could have. No problem. So the need to understand that relationship is very powerful. And in that relationship, there is still a leader. You know, I teach husbands and wives this, that in premarital counseling, when you are getting ready to make a serious decision financially or something you're doing with your home, you need to consult your spouse. You need to sit down, talk it through, pray it through so that you're in agreement. But what happens if you cannot come into agreement? What happens if the husband and wife do not come into agreement? It's simple. There's order. Well, sometimes you have to make the decision. And sometimes that's great wisdom. Don't do anything. But sometimes you have to make a decision. What do? Well, the responsibility falls on the head, which is the husband. And I've had wives say to me, but what if the decision is bad? What if it's really bad? And I said, well, guess what? The Lord will always bless you because you were in obedience as long as it's not against the word of God. The husband will pay the price. My daughter-in-law. It's true. Here we are, a real important factor within teamwork of leadership and ministry and also company. Creating the environment to allow your team to speak with you is imperative to keep you from causing serious mistakes that maybe you'd be blindsided to. When somebody is in that department and you're making a decision over that department that could really cause serious rifts and destruction, but yet that staff member sees that, it's so imperative to be able to hear from them. It's important to listen to them. And again, it's not that you're going to make that decision, but if you will relent, it might save you a lot of pain. How many of you know it's okay to experience pain as long as you're not causing it yourself? If you took a hammer and you're roofing or putting a nail into a wall and you slip and you hit your thumb, no cussing allowed. Guess what happens? How intelligent would that be if you said, wow, I should do that again? Boom, 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 boom. You start pounding your thumb with the hammer. How many of you know that's just not intelligent? Somebody could come up and say, you know what? Why don't you hold the nail differently? This is the influence you want your staff to have with you. But yet at the same time, your staff has to recognize that you can't always make the decision according to their influence. And that's the challenge of working with people and working with your staff. Now, I believe without question, and I do this strongly, is Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22. Plans go wrong for lack of advice. Many advisors bring success. I believe that it's great wisdom to always ask advice before you're making major decisions. Now, every one of us, we talked about the three things that David had. David had what? 3 people in his life? He had a coach, he had a confidant, and he had a confronter. David's coach was who? Samuel. David's confidant was who? Jonathan. David's confronter was who? Joab. And also, who's the prophet? Nathan. Very good. So here we are. You need people in your life that you can consult, that you can talk with. Now, for me, before I make major decisions, I'm usually calling my pastors, Bishop Rick Thomas, and I also call Brother Ted Shuttlesworth. I also have another confidant. I talk to Minister Redner. I also have another confidant, a pastor of 3,500 out in Idaho. I usually will call him, throw things by him. He's experienced certain things that I have not. I'm also, at some point in time, I'm excited. I want to be able to have another coach in my life that I've been talking with, and that would be just phenomenal because he pastors a church of 7,000. I'm looking to get these people in our lives because I believe without question, these people will be able to give us advice before we make poor choices. In the counsel of many, there's wisdom. It is not weakness to seek counsel. I will tell you this from past experience. You do have to be careful who you seek counsel from. Why is that? Well, because some people look at you seeking advice as you being weak. You have to be willing to accept that. I've sought advice from people, and they actually, I found out later, viewed me as somebody who was not wise enough, not smart enough, didn't have things in order enough. But in actuality, I would have made the exact same decision they were giving direction for. But I would rather ask 2 or 3 people, get wisdom, and then make the decision. But they didn't see it that way. They saw it as, my goodness, whenever he has a problem, he gives me a call. That's not one you want to call. Yes.
Okay, so
I need you to come up here. People need to be able to hear you.
I do.
Oh,
Okay, so then if you have somebody on your team that's over making big decisions, what's the best way? Obviously they can ask, advice from other leaders or whatever, but how do you narrow it down to where there might not be advice coming from a leader that doesn't really know? Do you know what I mean? So you're not getting completely opposite and then.
You are always going to get opposite.
Okay.
Because everyone's come from a different point of view. Probably wasn't the best answer that you were looking for, but the truth is that you do get different opinions. But that's the important part about you being the leader. You have to make the final decision.
Okay. So then how do
I need you to come on up here because they need to be able to get it. Right, you can do it from there. Go ahead.
Okay, so then how do you encourage or direct who they should get their advice from? So they're not just going to whoever they think and then getting advice from someone who should be probably giving advice.
Well, if you're going to open it up to your team, then you definitely know who on your team is going to have the better advice. It's not wrong listening to them. So there's nothing wrong with listening to their opinion. And if their opinion is wrong, it's okay to listen to their opinion. They just have to be willing to have their opinion heard, but not listened to, or I should say, not followed through. Pastor.
no, I was gonna say, is this loud enough for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm watching the bars jump.
My shot. I was gonna say that I was talking to a young man last night in Colorado, and I said to him, same thing he's asking. He says, yo, big bro, how do I do this? How do I go about it? I said, one of the things I found out through hardship, but through just understanding people, is that always listen, take their answers for what it's worth.
Right.
Everyone may not have a great, how can we say, plan of action, but you still may find at least one nugget in a person's idea that's being explained to you. Number 2, always allow cushion for the person that you're submitting your idea to. Never come with a plan fully developed. The reason I say add the cushion is because you always want that person to feel like they have a stake in it.
Right,
Make them believe that it's their idea.
right.
Even though your plan may already be, how can we say plan? from
Formulated,
A to Z.
yep.
Yeah. I've always had to learn, leave that cushion so they can say, I want to see this, I want to see that, I want to see that. It's already encapsulated what we really want to do, but now they have a stake in it. And so now it's easier for us to forge it forward. Last portion of that is when you do have a team, you always got to make sure that you do want people on your team that will voice.
Right.
I have no one working around me that does not voice. If they don't voice, they'll hear this. Open your mouth and speak to me. I don't even allow my children to just say, hey, Dad, I say to them, what do you think about this pair of shoes?
Right.
Do you want this shoe? Do you know what it's going to take to buy this shoe? We have conversations. So when they get older, it's just not, oh, I guess, I know. I need an intelligent answer
Right.
because I'm raising you to be a leader.
Very important, man. That was excellent.
I digress. You see how that?
Yeah, but that was awesome. And that really is where many people have a real problem, because they want their opinion heard and they get mad when it's not taken. Be willing to not allow it to be taken. I love Lou's statement. I'm going to give you my opinion. You can do whatever you want with it. Here's a man who can be paid for his opinion. And he was willing to give it without anybody receiving it or rejecting it. He didn't care. But that's security. This is where you and I become secure in ourselves. Now, there are times when you cannot change your mind or hear opinions. And this is where the team must learn this, because there are times you don't have the luxury of sitting down and asking everyone's opinion for a decision. As a parent, there were times with my family that I just couldn't give them the details of why. You've got to do this. Go do this now. Go do this now. Take care of this now. Well, why? 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 We have a generation that scream why a lot. The old timers didn't scream why a lot because when we screamed why, we got a hand across our head. But the younger generation are always asking why. You need to know it's okay to ask why, but there are going to be times when why is not going to be given to you. And you still have to be willing as the leader to a level to where if they're making a decision you don't understand, you don't comprehend, that you're still going to follow through with the answer or the direction that they're giving you. Sam Chan spoke about it last week when we went through his thing. One of the qualifications of being a great leader was being strong, to take direction without being offended. On the ladder does not allow long discourse. Today, you ready? Cody comes into my office. I'm getting ready to, I'm typing this stuff all out. And I had it typed out at home, just didn't save it. So it's sitting at home. So I had to retype it here. And so here I am. It just didn't work. So here I am. I'm cutting down the moments. And Cody comes in my office, leaves the door open. I said, close the door. I didn't say, will you please come back and close the door? I said, close the door. And he said something. I said, I don't have time for this. Close the door. And I didn't mean to be rude, but I was losing time. I needed every second I had. And so to him, it might have sounded rude, but he'll be all right. He'll be okay. If you're offended by every rude comment that's given or something you don't understand, then you're going to be very weak and you're not going to last long, especially in the ministry. You've got to be willing to be able to be strong. Number three, when you know that you've heard from God, you got to be willing to move forward, even if people don't agree with you. You will lose people. Well, I don't want to lose anybody. Well, who does?
I have a question.
Answer.
What if you feel like you've heard from God, but that everybody on your team is like, nah, like the exact opposite? What do you do about that? Did you not hear from God?
Sometimes you don't hear from God. And that's where, if you're in that high leadership position, that when you make that decision, your team will remain blessed and you'll pay the piper. You've got to be willing to lose people. You've got to be willing to have disgruntled staff. You've got to be willing to have people angry at you. You've got to be willing to have people question why you did what you did. Handle this within your own staff. Because there are simply times you cannot explain. Times that you know it was God and you've just got to step forward. You've got to do it. Listen, there are times that there are just windows, small shavings of opportunities that if you don't step into them, you lose them. You don't have time to go back and have a consult with your entire staff. And that's where relationship comes in. And that's where your staff has to be willing to trust it, that the decision you make is good. But yet, if you're making multiple bad decisions, you can't be shocked when they've lost confidence in your decision-making opportunities. So this isn't the norm. This is the abnormal. But there are times I have had to make choices and decisions in ministry that literally people looked at me and said, if you're making this decision, I'm leaving the church. And I've had to be willing to say, okay, because I know I heard from God. I know we have to move in this direction. And they've walked out the door. They've taken people with them. They've been angry with me. One cussed me out. You've got to be willing. You've got to be willing. You've got to be willing. If you know that this is the decision you're supposed to make, you've got to be willing not to be moved. You have got to have that tenacity that says, I will not be moved. If you don't have that tenacity and you're always moved by everybody's opinion, then you will never make it, baby. You are going to be a pile and a wreck in the corner because after a while, everyone's personalities and everyone's opinions vacillating as much as they do, you are going to be a mess. You aren't going to please everybody. And in this time when you make a decision, especially if you know it's the Lord, man, you have got to get solid. You have got to get grounded. You have got to be firm. Great example of this is 2 Kings. We all know the story between Elisha and Elijah. Elijah is getting ready to be taken up into heaven. Verse 2, and Elijah said to Elisha, stay here, please, for the Lord has sent me out to Bethel. But Elisha said, but as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. Now the sons of the prophets, who were the preachers of those days, they were the Bible school students. Do you not know that the Lord's going to take your master away from you today? And he said, yes, I know. Shut up. We wanted to say it nice. Be quiet. It's not what he said. Shut up. This did not happen once. This did not happen twice. This happened 3 times. Where the prophet said, stay here. And he said, no, I'm going. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he had to do. He knew the answer. He knew the decision. 3 times the prophets, the preachers said, don't you realize he's going to be taken away? Why don't you just back off? Be quiet. He was a man, human, just like everybody in this room. But he made a decision. And when he made that decision, it changed his life forever. Sometimes there are decisions that you have to make that if you know beyond a shadow of a doubt it is God, you've got to make those choices. Now, if you've submitted yourself to somebody, you have to be willing to hear them. Because a true leader's only desire is to bring you into acceleration. A true leader, their passion is to make you successful. So what happens is, if you are unwilling to listen to your leader, my children, if they told me, it was funny, I would say to my kids, hey, listen, I'll pay you $5, go clean my car. And they would say to me, I love you, Jody. They would say to me, well, I don't want to clean your car for $5. And I would look at them and say, awesome, you're doing it for free now. Get out and clean my car. A lot of times we don't like to submit to authority. True leadership always submits to authority. Let me say it again. True leadership always submits to authority. Because the authority means there's lineage of responsibility. And if you are under your authority and they are wrong, you will still be blessed. But if you override your authority, God won't bless you, not even that it wasn't what God wanted you to do, but because you were dishonoring his authority. This is something we don't like to talk about in today's era. Well, I feel led to. I feel this. I feel led to go this. I feel led to do that. If you want to feel led, grab a pencil. We are led by leaders. You like that, huh? We are led by leaders. That's very old. That's much older than you. 3 times he had to hold strong to what he knew was right. Now, if Elijah had looked at him and said to him, listen, I'm telling you now, you're not going over to the other side. He would not have gone over to the other side. I had a pastor on staff when we first started. Great guy. His name is Mike Thomas. No problem sharing his name because he wouldn't care. Mike Thomas was one that was like this. If you gave him a directive, he gave you his opinion. And if you didn't go according to his opinion again and push a little harder. And then push a little harder. And then push a little harder. Weak leaders always collapsed under the direction of his influence. So one time somebody came to me. Well, actually, we were putting together the financial packet for banks, and I put the vision statement, and then I put our 5-year projections, and then I put our financials. And he said to me, I believe that the projections need to be at the back of the book instead of the front of the book. And I said, no, this is where it needs to be. I need to be able to cast the vision, because if I can hook them with the vision, then the financials will just be an enhancer. No. And knowing him, I looked at him and I said, listen, I'm not moving it. Oh, okay. I just figured if I could get you to change your mind, then that would have worked. I'm okay with that. But there are times your leader puts their foot down and says no. And unless it's anti-Bible, you got to be willing to submit to that. Have you ever read the book of Philemon? Philemon. Yes.
I've never heard it said like that. Me either.
Philemon.
I've never heard it called Philemon. It's Philemon.
That's awesome.
Now listen, have you ever read Philemon?
Yes, yes, I have.
What is that written about? What's that about? It's about a slave. It's about a slave. In those days, slaves were owned. What did he say to Philemon? He said, listen, I'm sending this dude back to you because he ran away. If he owes you anything, put it to my account. But he told the slave to obey his master. You know, we have authorities in our lives. And even though they're wise to hear our opinions, we've got to recognize that even if they're wrong, if you remain in submission in a proper dimension, as long as it's not anti-scripture, you will be blessed. So the willingness can not only be upon the leader, it has to be upon the followers. It has to be upon those that are on staff. The willingness to say, okay, They didn't take my opinion. I'm not offended. Let's move forward. Yes.
What if you make like?
You're not loud enough. I'm not seeing the green jump.
What if you make like 10 bad decisions in a row and then your people don't trust you to make a good decision anymore?
Then you cannot remain under that leader any longer.
Okay.
Okay? After a period of time when the leader continues to make bad choices and bad decisions, after a while you lose confidence. What's confidence? Trust. After you lose a level of trust with your followers, they no longer can trust your decision making. If they do not trust your decision making, then they no longer trust your leadership. If they no longer trust your leadership, then they're really not under your authority.
So what if you are that bad leader?
Then if you're that bad leader, then you need good training.
Yes. Yes, so just to piggyback off of that,
A little bit louder, Pastor Obi.
I don't think that any leader whose oversights really care about them will let them make 10 major mistakes in a row. Maybe 1 or 2, but after that, you get reined back in, you get retrained, and then you're then let back out. So it is less about you making the 10 and more about why did your oversight let you make 10 in a row.
Now, let me tell you how I work. I'm sure I've explained this before. But I work with my staff in this area. There are 2 types of decisions. You have bad choices, and then you have terminal mistakes. I don't mind people making bad choices. I don't mind mistakes. I always try to guard the staff against what I call terminal mistakes, ones you'll never be able to recover from. There are mistakes you can never recover from. And your leader should always guard you from those type of mistakes. Will there be mistakes? A person that is not making mistakes and bad decisions is one that's not making decisions. So you have to be willing to make bad decisions too. I've watched people that are so afraid to make a bad decision, they make no decision. That's worse than anybody, because that means you're never going anywhere. I'd rather have people making choices and sometimes bad decisions because I can guide them. But making terminal mistakes are ones that you have to terminate them over. So always know that you will be making bad choices. Just make them very wise. Do and live Proverbs. In the counsel of many, there's wisdom. But when you do know it's God, you've got to have tenacity. And you're willing to pay the price of loneliness. Because it is many times lonely when you have to make a very hard decision and move forward on it, even when everybody else disagrees. What makes a difference is, does your staff believe in you? Do they believe in the vision? Because they'll still stay on board as long as they believe in the vision. Sometimes making those hard decisions can be very tactical. What do I mean by that? Very tactical in the aspect of making a very hard decision amongst your staff that will cause friction and tension to see who actually is in the vision and those who are not. So sometimes decisions are made to cause division. A division between those that are truly sold out and those that are just going for the ride. But no matter what, as a leader and as leaders, you've got to have enough self-esteem to listen even to the disagreements and be willing to take the stand even if nobody else agrees with where you're going. Anybody have any questions? That's good stuff. So I challenge you, make this part of your life, because every one of you are supposed to have teams. Every one of you is supposed to have teams, which means this applies to you. Not only to the one that's above you, but also to the people that are submitted under you. Be willing to hear them. Build levels of relationship. At the same time, have a tenacity to stand firm with the decision that you know you have to make. You'll always grow. Anybody have questions? Thoughts? Concerns? I'm excited. It's our very first broadcast on YouTube Live. We'll have that edited and put on Empowering Pastors, and everybody on Mega Meeting. We are going to be shifting at some point in time over to the other one. We're finding it to be more advantageous and saves $130 a month. And you'll be able to get on and show these to your staff whenever you want, not just when I send them to you. So everybody have a great day. Make sure you share this with your leadership team and grow, 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 grow. And the quality of YouTube is better than Mega Meeting. Yeah, you can see the granulations. So I challenge you all to over the next month or so is when we're going to make the transition. We'll make it slow and not quick. Thank you. It is XI. Please share this with your teams. Don't just get the information, but share it with your teams. I love you all.
All right, all y'all, get your stuff out of my car.
Say it again.
Yeah.
Philemon. So neither.
Yeah.
Is that in the Hebrew? I mean, the Greek?
I don't know, just send me to. Philemon.
Stop broadcasting.